Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, it is almost time. The long off season is almost at an end. Fall camp is just mercifully a few days away.
In this ridiculous Arizona heat, it could seem like a mirage, like this oasis out in the distance that is maybe not a real thing, but a figment of our imagination as we're all just drenching in this 115-degree summer heat. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you, this thing is real. It's headed our way. We're just about, I believe, 5 weeks or so from the kickoff to the 2023 season, if the math is mathing the right way, because we are almost tipping into the month of August. And when you get into August, then that's when it feels really real. So like there's going to be real football coming up. So we're just about there, this long off season with a lot of twists and turns and moves. The first one, of course, under Kenny Dillingham. This chapter is about to close. We're about to open a new one, a big one, an important one, and get this thing started for real.
It is going to be great to have Sun Devil football back. Fall camp opens Monday, July 31st. And you mentioned the heat. I mean, it's good for them doing it in the morning, but man, I'm still a little concerned because I actually left the media session yesterday, got in my car, and I knew the car thermometers or whatever, not so accurate. I've never seen 127.
My truck hit like 130 something at some point. I mean, I had it pointed like right in the sun, parked for, probably a better part of a day or so. But yeah, we're seeing these weird numbers. So, and it's funny because I looked into the, the forecast for a event that we'll be talking about here momentarily and saw, wow, it's only supposed to be 109 that day. So, it's going to be brisk weather. Sweatshirts might be necessary for the thing that we will discuss in detail here in a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at like a day 25 of 110 plus, but the relief is on the way, both in terms of the weather and the football salvation that we are needing so bad. And you talked about just kind of a new era starting up. Of course, it's Sun Devil football under Kenny Dillingham's a big new era, but our 13th season of the Speak of the Devils podcast is kicking off in a big way. We've talked to you guys. You know that our first live show event is coming up August 4th, Graduate Hotel, Tempe, Arizona, 6 to 8 p.m., followed by a great Sun Devil Summit. But, Joe, spots are filling up fast.
They are. It's an awesome venue. We toured it. We checked things out a couple of weeks ago. It's a really cool place. Gonna have room for some rabid Sun Devil fans to have a great time, but the seating is limited. Space is limited. So I implore you, I encourage you, I ask you, please, if you plan to go, if you haven't already, RSVP on the site. There's links all over our social media. We're going to be circling that back around. So if you haven't done that yet, please do that. Helps us get a little bit of a head count of who will be there. Helps us prepare because we're going to have a lot of great things. Swag for days.
Free stuff, folks.
Not only do we have that swag for days, internally, spiritually, mentally, metaphysically, but it'll be tangible in the sense of the items that we'll provide to each and every one of you who come out to the Graduate Hotel. We're going to have an incredible time. Like I said, check out the website, the link that we'll be sharing to RSVP. Starts at 6 p.m. next Friday. It's next Friday, August 4th. Want to get there a little bit early? Brad and I will be there early, setting up. Come on, hang out. Again, we're going to be sharing a lot more information about kind of what we'll be doing that day. But we also have, some developments. I think we might be able to tell some folks about the people who will be joining us there.
Yeah, we do have a couple of folks that'll be coming by. We have some others that are in the mix as well. But, it would not be a Speak of the Devils event without Hoder Rubino, DevilsDigest.com, our old friend. He's making the push to 100 appearances, Joe.
I think, do we have to present him with his Rolex at the show? Would that be the ceremonial way to go about doing things?
Every time I see him at an ASU media thing, he's like, got my gold watch ready?
There you go. I think we might have to surprise him. So Hode will be there hanging out with us. We're obviously going to be talking about all things ASU, recruiting, whatever the case may be. Now, with our guests, we obviously will talk with them in interview fashion like we do on every show, but we also plan to open up for Q&A for you, the guests, the attendees who will be joining us there. So bring the awesome questions and the talking points. In addition to Hode, we got another guy that has been with us from the very start. He's been with me since the very start of my life. That might be a dead giveaway. My old man, Pops, Tim Healy, the voice of the Sun Devils, entering season 26. So he's got us doubled up.
That's all right. I mean, if we're going to be coming in second place, that's a great one to be trailing. Yeah, obviously, the voice of the Sun Devils, one of the best storytellers, sports or otherwise, that we know. Tremendous wealth of Sun Devil knowledge. A lot of probably things that you guys want to talk about. And actually, speaking of the we found in the archive the other day the 1991 Camp T special that 3TV put out.
Okay, that one we've seen bits and pieces of, right? Or is
I
that a
think
different year?
This is a different
I
year.
think it was 93, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
The 93 has been started, yeah, because it has like the Jake Plummer freshman quarterback.
Yeah,
and
okay, that one I've seen, yeah.
But yeah, the 91, it had a segment with Frank Cush, just talking about how Larry Marmee is going to turn it around.
There you go. Submitted without any comment exposed. There. What's crazy is like Frank Cush at that time. I mean, he probably was like 50, 60 years old. Like he probably was, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I don't know if I've seen an interview with Frank Cush, from an era that wasn't in maybe the last 10, 15, 20 years, of his life. So that would just be an interesting thing just as a fan.
I'll have to cut that and put it out on the show social media, because it was great. I think Dan Devine was there too. Like they were talking.
I know he lived in Arizona prior to his passing, which I think was somewhere in the early part of the 21st century. We're getting way off topic here, but in addition to that second wonderful, illustrious guest that I mentioned, he is going to be a total trooper, and he's expected to be a total trooper, as you would expect nothing less. He's going to have a little bit of just real basic, pretty low key eye procedure surgery the day before. But he's still on board. I talked to him yesterday. I'm like, you sure you're up for this? Like, we get it. He's like, no, I'm going to be there. He may or may not have an eye patch. I was seeing maybe if they got like Cactus Sports got an ASU eye patch or something like that.
Mike Leach tribute.
He said he might be patchless. We'll see about that part, but we're expecting him to be on board because he obviously wants to be a part of it. Would love to chop it up with you all. So again, a couple of great guests. We're working on some others as well. Difficult to get a lot of options here because with the fall camp coming up, there are some folks from the program that we would maybe want to have on board that are otherwise occupied. But of course, the guests that we have on this list, illustrious, incredible folks that have been with us from the start. I know y'all love them as much as we do. As I mentioned, bring the questions, bring the talking points. This is going to be a social thing, an interactive thing, and we're going to have a great time. Once again, Friday, August the 4th. At this point, it is next Friday. RSVP, we'll send you the link. Come hang out, have a great time, get some free swag. We're going to be doing some giveaways from our sponsors. It's the first time we've done this, and we certainly hope that it's not the last. And we certainly, above all, hope that you'll have an incredible time hanging out with us.
It's going to be a wonderful night of Sun Devil merriment, that is for sure. And also, it's going to be the 5th day that ASU will have been in fall camp. They are hitting the ground running. As we mentioned, they are starting practice on Monday, July 31st, and they are going nonstop through Saturday. I don't know that I've seen a fall or spring practice schedule going 6 straight to open up. So Kenny Dillingham is putting his team through the paces, getting them ready. So it'll be a lot to talk about. And this is something that we're going to be talking about on this show. It's our fall camp preview. We're going to go position by position, talking about the key position battles, the main storylines you got to follow, and all the things that the new faces you got to keep track of, some of the drama, the merriment, everything that's going on. A lot of good stuff because there's a lot of optimism, a lot of questions, a lot of concern. We're going to break it all down on this episode, and we're also going to be talking to several key Sun Devils. Quarterback Drew Pyne, obviously at the center of the big main storyline of fall camp at the quarterback battle. Running back Cam Skattebo is going to be talking about his role in the offense, of course, coming off a breakout spring. Xavier Guillory, another spring star. And then a great conversation the other day with linebacker Juju Mitchell coming over from Tennessee. Quite a character. Maybe you saw the clip on our YouTube or Instagram page, but man, that guy's a character. A lot of good things to say. So you'll hear from all those guys throughout this episode as we break down ASU's upcoming fall camp. But before we talk about football, Joe, some news on the baseball front in a positive fashion.
There you go. Yeah. Here today on Tuesday, yet another call up to the bigs. MLBU added again. We had Alec Marsh earlier this season, and this time it's infielder Alika Williams with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who not too long ago was traded from out of the Tampa Bay organization to Pittsburgh, and he's made his way up to the bigs now, which is awesome. Incredible player, one of the best defensive players that you'll ever see come out of Arizona State. Wonderful human being, great family, just a dude that you can really, really cheer for and support. There's an overwhelming amount of support on social media for this, and that's a testament to the guy that he is. The Pirates maybe getting some Sun Devil fans between Drew Maggi earlier this year and now Alika, might be kind of building up there a little bit, but that's awesome for him. Hope that he has a very long stay, long career at the major league level. I'm not sure what that brings the number to. I should have had that
117.
117. There you go, with a couple add-ons here this year, and hopefully that just of course continues to build. Some other news on the baseball front, something that made me pretty fired up, and hopefully all of y'all as well. I saw that there was announced from Globe Life Field, of course, home of the Texas Rangers, that next spring, next March 1st through 3rd, ASU will be participating in like a baseball, I assume, tournament out there in Arlington, Texas. Of course, with Arizona State, TCU, USC, Texas A&M. So pretty dang good teams when it comes to baseball or any sport. So it looks like they're doing a multi-weekend deal, because I think the weekend before Michigan's involved, it would have been pretty interesting to, of course, have ASU possibly matching up with Michigan, but I don't think that that's going to be a thing. I think it's just something that they do out there in the spring. So you can better believe that I'm going to be out there. I'm going to test that I'm going to put a few tests in the, the next, 6 to 9 months of my life of the whole road curse thing, but not with football. So I don't know if this is apples and oranges. We'll have to see, because, ASU basketball playing out at Diggy's Arena in Fort Worth, Texas against TCU. I will not miss that. Fort Worth is an incredible place. And then heading out to Arlington, play at Globe Life. You're going to get me out there as well. So I'm going to get basketball and baseball on the road, the road game end of things. I don't believe that I've really ever done that. So we're venturing into uncharted waters here in the great state of Texas, and maybe that can pan out. Football, we'll see. Exercise the demons. I mean, our guy Hode always tells me I should have gone to that New Mexico game in 2014 to pull the plug on the demons there. That did not happen, but we will see. But back, to the news, the heart of the matter. Cool thing for ASU to participate in. We know Willie Bloomquist really likes to take that same mentality that we've seen from other, Bobby Hurley, Greg Powers, these type of coaches at ASU who do not shy away from scheduling, mega programs. Of course, ASU went on the road, played at Mississippi State this past season, so that's something they want to do. So this tournament would be a really, really cool thing for them to be a part of in what will be year 3 under Willie Bloomquist.
Yeah, just thinking about the non-con schedules, the road trips in the future. Now, if they keep, I don't know, I'm still not convinced they're going to keep it on schedule, but next year ASU football is supposed to go play at Texas State.
Yeah, and I'll be there, because that would be a perfect one, because it's a great area that I would love to go to, and that's a team that, my goodness, you got to win that game. I mean, I know that
That's just outside of Austin, right?
Let's look that up, because I actually don't know exactly where Texas is.
Of course, it's a remnant from the Todd Graham era, but yeah, just a team. I mean, the Texas State's been struggling in recent years. Jake Spavital kind of drove the program into the ground a little bit, so I'm stunned.
Yes, it is in the Austin area, according to the Wikipedia.com.
Yeah, so that I that could be an easy get off the schneid type of,
because they
football.
got GJ Kinney, right? Isn't that
hired
him? Yeah, and so that's they have the ability to maybe get something interesting going, right?
He
was an incarnate word, right? Is that where he came from?
I think so. And because Spavital was just like, yeah, we're not we're gonna bother with high school recruiting in Texas.
Yeah.
Whereas like Kinney's like, let's actually get these good players.
So it could be, by the time that rolls around, if that's still on the schedule, it could be an interesting thing. So that will be a good opportunity as well. So we'll see, because it's an interesting thing. I have gotten like unsolicited. It's wild how serious this gets. I remember I was at the UCLA game in 2019, and that game got off to a horrid start. And I got some like messages from phone numbers I don't even have. Like, dude, you got to leave. I'm like, it's flattering that y'all pay attention to this, but also weird. I don't know really where it landed on the whole subject. So moral of the story, ASU's playing out in the great state of Texas, not once, but twice within, what would be probably about a 2.5 month span between December and March, and I'll be there, and we'll see what happens.
All right, so we'll put those curses to the test, but for right now, let's talk Sun Devil football. ASU opens camp, as you mentioned, July 31st. So let's run down all the position groups, all the major storylines. It can be a lot of position battles. There's some positions that, as you've heard us talk about for the last couple months, in pretty good shape, and so perhaps they're just kind of shaking out. Quarterback is not one of those. There's going to be the prime battle. Now, in spring ball, it was Trenton Bourget, pretty much by consensus, coming out of spring, the leader of that clubhouse. But we just got to think back to 2012, whereas like Taylor Kelly was kind of trailing the pack. Michael Eubank or Mike Bercovici were going to be the son of a quarterback that year, surely. But no, TK ultimately took the job, became one of the most proficient. and productive quarterbacks in program Pac-12 conference history. I mean, he just put up some ridiculous numbers. Not necessarily putting the burden of expectations to that level on any of these guys, but one thing that we can know is that this is going to be a high profile battle. 3 contenders, which it's interesting that Kenny Dillingham at Pac-12 Media Day told us that there's going to be 3 guys that are going to be competing for this job: Trenton Bourguet, Drew Pyne, the Notre Dame transfer, Jaden Rashada. Notable by omission, Jacob Conover. Now, not necessarily that he had kind of an up and down spring to be favorable, but a young talented arm wasn't, I don't think, necessarily in the mix so much. But just kind of, I thought, notable by omission. But kind of a 3-horse race. But honestly, it's a 2-horse race: Bourguet v. Pyne.
So now, do you think, is it Bourguet's job to lose, or is it completely up for grabs? Because I think that's an important question. A lot of folks have been asking me who's going to be the quarterback, and the takeaway from the spring would lean opinion toward, okay, it's Bourguet's job to lose. Do you think that that's the case, or is it not? Or things not quite shifted that far in his favor?
I think it's still gonna be an open competition, which I do. They always, would say, like, who takes the first snap in camp. I think Bourguet has earned that right. He was much better in spring. I think Code Rubino, Devil's Digest had like the stats behind it, but even just passing the eye test. I mean, obviously Bourguet isn't gonna wow you with a 6'5" stature or cannon for an arm, but he is just so good above the shoulders with his football IQ. It's off the charts. His command of the offense. A brand new offense was pretty evident in spring from the get-go, and especially now that his foot was healthy. You saw after that first week of spring, he really decided to, or became on and was a productive guy, throwing with great anticipation, not making a whole lot of mistakes. Now, all the quarterbacks in spring had to contend with a very rejuvenated son of a pass rush to make their lives a little bit more difficult. That's something that I think Drew Pyne really struggled with in spring, is that he rushed a lot of decisions, made some mistakes, threw more picks than Bourguet. He showed off a quick release, had a couple practices individually that were really good, but collectively really struggled. Kind of, the old Manny thing of just like feeling a pressure. And so it's one read and run. Now that could just be somebody just finding their feet, brand new spot. Maybe over this, he got more comfortable over the spring. He says he did, as you'll hear in his interview here in a moment. But I think that as of right now, it's Bourguet is the leader in the clubhouse. I think Rashada is, the plan still remains that they would love to see him redshirt. The quarterback of the future, but I think it's just a 2-horse race. Some people have told me off record that they think it's really just those 2 guys, but it's going to be interesting to see the workload distribution. And ultimately, Kenny Dillingham said, just like most coaches when they talk about a quarterback competition, it's not the coaches making that decision; it's the team making that decision of just like they know as a coach that when they see that their team kind of rally around one guy, they know that's the guy. So we'll see. Both guys are more comfortable. Obviously, Bourguet has the advantage of being here for a number of years, playing with the guys last year. But I think right now it's Bourguet in the lead.
Yeah, and I think really important aspect of that is the relationship and the connection that he's built with Elijah Badger, and especially with Jalen Conyers. I mean, it's no mistake. You look at when the shift was made to Bourguet, and even that first start he had at Colorado, and that was Jalen Conyers' coming out party with 3 touchdowns, whatever he had, and things went off to the races. I mean, those statistics that we've talked about on many occasions that Conyers put together over that, I think, 5 or 6 game span, out of this world. Of course, who was the starting quarterback for those? Trenton Bourguet. So I think that's something that's meaningful. I think it is comparable to that 2012 situation with the quarterbacks, although with that you had guys, none of whom had starting experience at this level. So it was really a blank slate. It's different now, and it kind of may cancel each other out because you've got Pyne, who has starting experience, just not at Arizona State, and Bourguet, who has experience as well. It seems to me, at least at this point, all things considered, and by virtue of the things that usually tend to stand out in these competitions, i.e. ball security, that it would certainly would surprise me if anybody but Trenton Bourguet is the starter for game 1. To your point about Jaden Rashada, it sounds like, maybe they would want to bring him along slowly, give him the opportunity to redshirt. Now with that, of course, with the regulations, could still get some game time, and still preserve that redshirt. That certainly would not surprise me one bit, is if he gets some action here and there, if the opportunities present themselves, that would be, I don't see why not. I'm not saying necessarily throw him into the wolves in high pressure situations, but if week 1, if you're able to get a substantial lead over an FCS opponent, great. But yeah, once again, at the quarterback position, Seems to me like the likelihood is a status quo deal. You're talking about Trent Bourguet, who's ultra prepared and always the whatever criticisms folks might have about him, whether it's lack of prototypical size or whatever it may be, it's always balanced by a tremendous amount of preparation, high IQ, and the ability to execute when called upon. And I know for sure that he's not just resting on his laurels, kicking his feet up, thinking, hey, I was the guy here as QB1 for a good chunk of the season, so that gives me an easy way back in as the incumbent. I'm certain he doesn't have that mentality. He's just he's a guy that always has kind of that underdog mentality, and that's a good thing. Always fighting to earn or to keep your spot. There's nothing wrong with that. But then again, Pyne has experience from Notre Dame, played at a high level, had a successful team. He wasn't necessarily your Joe Montana or your Ron Paulus or something like that. But that said, Ron Paulus should have won like 5 Heisman trophies, right? I've tried to be as random in the quarterbacks as it possibly can be. What am I even talking about? Yes, he was accomplished there, but still some question marks about it. So again, to sum that all up, it would kind of surprise me if it were anything other than what appears to be predictable with Bourguet as QB1, Pyne right there if something were to happen, Rashada kind of waiting in the wings, maybe gets a little bit of an opportunity this year.
Yeah, and we'll see what Pyne is able to do. Don't want to sound it. Well, I think we're both in agreement here that Bourguet is the front runner at this point as we open up fall camp. A lot of things can change, and you just got to look at the head coach, Kenny Dillingham's track record of kind of revitalizing quarterbacks that perhaps some people thought might be a lost cause or that have hit their ceiling, and then they find several levels above. I mean, you look at what Jordan Travis has been able to do since Dillingham was down in Tallahassee, and of course Bo Nix a season ago. Maybe Drew Pyne is the next resurrection, or perhaps it's Bourguet building off of last year. We'll see. Kenny's got the burgeoning quarterback whisperer reputation, so we will see. But I think it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's just going to be those two guys. Their reps during the spring were pretty even, so the quarterback room thinned out a little bit. With Bennett Meredith now at Purdue. So just those two guys going to be kind of battling it out for that QB1 title, and whoever wins it, it's obviously going to have a number of good playmakers at their disposal. But we talked about this good battle a little bit. Let's hear from one of those competitors. Here's my conversation with ASU quarterback Drew Pyne.
What are some of the biggest kind of off-season gains that you've seen in your game?
Yeah, well, I think just right off the bat, like you said, Coach Joe, honestly, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. I'm 200 pounds, probably gain 5 more pounds by the season, probably lose a little bit of it in camp. But I'm in the best shape of my life. I've studied my tail off all off-season, just put my nose in the playbook and just try to know it like the back of my hand come fall camp.
How comfortable do you feel in the playbook, the offense right now, as opposed to perhaps the end of spring?
Very. I feel very comfortable. I feel like, as a quarterback, being able to, be an extension of the coaching staff on the field is something that's very important. And, not only just knowing the plays, not only just knowing the protection, but knowing the alignment of the receivers in every formation and every tag. And so, just going home and doing that every single day. I got 2 roommates, Xavier Guillory and Melquan Stovall, who we do that all the time, and so just always can learn.
You're getting more comfortable in the offense all the time. What is kind of jumps out about this Dillingham Baldwin offense? It seems like quarterback is get the ball out pretty quick, get it to the playmakers, almost kind of like play a point guard type role.
100%. I mean, we got incredible receivers here. Our first and second group are guys that can go and play and score touchdowns and make big plays. And there's a stat that said Patrick Mahomes last year, he didn't throw many passes past 20 yards for touchdowns last year. So he just put the ball in the right place and made his playmakers go make plays. And we have guys who can do that. And we also take a lot of shots. So mix between Coach Dillingham and Coach Baldwin has really come along. And I think this summer with all the player run practices, we've made a big stride, and I'm really excited going into fall camp.
Obviously, Kenny's had a great success in kind of maximizing his quarterback's potential. Jordan Travis and Bo Nix a year ago. What jumps out to you about why he's been so effective at kind of developing, fostering success in quarterbacks?
Yeah, well, I think he has an incredible system. I think him as a person is someone who is very easy to relate to and learn from. And he comes into our meetings with Coach Baldwin, and whatever plays up on the board, he'll go and tell us a million things about that play. He knows everything about football, the ins and outs. So just kind of being able to be around him, and he's such a great leader of our team, being able to bring, half of a new team and new staff all together. He's done an incredible job with that. So, I think like I said, I think we've made a big stride in this offseason and this summer since spring camp, not just off the field, but on the field and the player run practices as well. So I'm very excited for camp.
What jumps out to you about kind of the culture and just kind of the vibe here now that you have several months as a Sun Devil?
Yeah.
Just how, what kind of program that Kenny and the staff lead?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I've said 100 times, I mean, I'm really excited. I love this team. I love all the new guys. I love the guys that were here. I love the tradition of the university. This coaching staff is awesome, and they're all almost every coach is a player's coach. You go up and talk to any coach on the offensive or defensive staff and have a great conversation. And, the guys have worked really hard. Today we did conditioning this morning, and a couple guys, sit out a couple of reps, and the players came together and said, hey, we need to run more because, this is stuff that's going to get us beat. So a lot of motivation from the staff and the coaches, but also just, self-motivation is gained, and all of us have all really pushed really hard and tried to maximize our potential. So.
Quarterback battle is going to be, center stage, vying for that QB1 spot. What's that rapport like in that quarterback room, with Trent, Jaden, Jacob, the guys that are kind of gunning for that job?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Baldwin does a great job with that, so does Coach Dillingham, and those guys are great guys. I've spent a lot of time with them, some of my best friends, and I've been able to, hang out with them and be in the film room and get better, and we push each other. Something that I've always, I've been in competitions my whole college career. Something that I've always told myself is just control what you can control. What I can control is being in the playbook. What I can control is being ready for practice, having my body right, and being healthy. And as long as I can do that and play my best, that's what that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm really excited. I'm an ultimate competitor. I love this, and I can't wait for camp and to put the badge back on.
Drew, what's it take to show the coaches that you're the guy? What's it going to take here in camp when camp starts?
Yeah, I think in competitions, a lot of people, press to try to make big plays here and there, and kind of just being able to control the offense and taking what's there. Like I said, we have a lot of players that could take a 5-yard slant 30 yards. So, just staying within the offense, going through your reads, bring your feet and eyes to throws, and just being able to know the offense really well and just operate. The big shots and the big plays will all come, but you just got to be able to take what the defense gives you in the beginning, and those big shots will come.
A lot of the guys are telling us about leadership too, just your leadership skills in the huddle and the class group.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that I've worked extremely hard this offseason in training and player run practices and stuff like that. So kind of just my work ethic and how I approach the season, how I approach practice, how I approach going in and squatting tomorrow. I think I'm fully locked in. It's pretty much like a job for me here. I come here, I go to the facility, go home, and do my schoolwork, and I came here as a business trip. So.
You may have answered this, but what's it like for a guy who's from back east dealing with the heat wave that we're going through right now?
Yeah, honestly, so I think I've actually been able to adjust to it pretty well. I went down to the Manning thing down in Louisiana, and it was real humid there and still like 95 degrees, so I was able to feel the humidity and come back here and actually appreciate the air. However, there's no joking around when it gets to 115 or something. So, like I said, I can just control what I can control. I can't control the heat. So, I've worked really hard this offseason. I'm running, and I think Coach Joe has us ready.
When you transfer into a program like this, how long does it take before you really start to feel comfortable in your environment?
Yeah, well, I think that, we had so many new guys on the team, so much new staff that, it probably takes, maybe 2 weeks to get, in the system of like knowing everything and knowing where to be, when to be there. But I think that, the team is just continually getting closer. Like every single workout, every single team meeting, Coach Dillingham's done a great job with that. Coach Joe's done a great job with that. And, I think the team has become very, very close. And I think that's, when I got here, it was all new transfers. I didn't know how the team was going to, turn out. But I'll tell you, we have each other's backs. We work for each other. We work really hard. So I'm very excited for this team.
All right, so good stuff from Drew there. Now let's move on to the weapons that whoever wins a quarterback battle is going to be blessed to be playing alongside, because there are a lot of very talented playmakers on this spot. Let's start in that backfield, Joe. I talked to Sean Aguano recently for a sit-down series episode and kind of asked him the question. We've talked about it on the program a little bit. What does he want in terms of a workload? I mean, we've seen the last several years, basically his entire tenure, one dominant back. His Benjamin for a couple of years. Then you have Rashad White, ex-Valade a season ago, and he said that he wants some rotation. He wants to get multiple guys involved in the process, but that if there's one guy who just decides to go out there and claim that job, then that's what's going to happen. This is an offense that likes to have multiple backs, but it's a good problem to have. If you have one guy who's just really good and you want to give him the ball a bunch.
Yeah, and that guy, at least coming out of the spring, Cam Skattebo, he's someone that came in with so much intrigue, and I feel like we've gone through these superlatives and compliments and areas of interest on several occasions on this show in the last several months. But it really resonates. It's tough for me to think of like a player that I'm really as intrigued to see play and see what he can do at this level as him. I mean, there's obviously been others, but this is it's such an intriguing thing because he did what he did at the FCS level. Tremendously impressive. Again, kind of going back to the Trenton Bourguet thing. Does he have the prototypical size for a D1 Power 5 running back? Probably not, but does he make up for that in other ways? Oh, you better believe he does. So again, really eager to see this kind of underdog mentality show to the forefront. Is he going to be someone that's touching the ball 20, 25 times a game and getting in well in excess of 1,000 all-purpose yards over the course of the season? He has the potential. It boils down to how he can adapt to this level, and also, like you said, the strategies that the coaching staff has, because there are a number of different running backs, some that have college experience, some that have high recruiting pedigree. You've got a mixture of a lot of things that are in this running back depth chart, but kind of different from years past. You don't have that returning player or that newcomer who has a lateral comparison like an ex-Valade did. And I kind of reminded myself earlier, the last time ASU had a really big question mark as far as running back in terms of proven experience at this level. I remember I did some research a few years ago that ASU had something like the fewest returning yards by running backs, either in the conference or on a national scale. It was among the least that was there. That could lead you into some problematic territory and some concern. What happened that year? A dude by the name of Benjamin went on and set the school single season rushing record, single game rushing record, and a ton of other records. So that just goes to show you that a lack of numbers, the presence of concerns may not always be a sign for danger. But this year's group, we're going to see how that pans out.
Yeah, they're going to run the ball. Sun Devils are going to run the ball. Kenny Dillingham likes to run the ball. Bo Baldwin likes to run the ball, even though they're perhaps more known for the passing offenses. But yeah, there's going to be some very talented backs, and these backs are going to get a lot of work, whether it is running the ball or out of the backfield as receivers. In spring, the backs caught a lot of passes. Cam was on the receiving end for a lot. DeCarlos Brooks, the Cal transfer, really kind of jumped out to me with his receiving skills as well. Javen Jacobs, the converted going from slot in the spring to running back, kind of with some team needs. He was obviously a very capable receiver as well. So there's a lot of guys here in the mix. And, one of the biggest questions that I'm looking to see, how good or how big of a jump can Tevin White, the former 4-star recruit, make from year 1 to year 2? Now, he showed some flashes in the Territorial Cup game against Arizona. And, we had some expectations to see what he could do in spring. Unfortunately, got dinged up a little bit. One of the reasons why Jacobs was moved from receiver to running back. But he's a 4-star prospect for a reason. He good size, very physical runner. This coaching staff's very high on him. But, Skattebo rather, is a guy who can do it all at the FCS level, an extremely productive offense at Sac State. He could be that guy that we saw with Rashad White making that jump up from the JUCO level, or even like a ex-Valade who put up a ton of yards, but it's at Wyoming in the Mountain West. So making those big jumps up to the Power 5 and putting up some big time numbers, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Tevin White pans out this season. Is it going to be a complimentary attack maybe similar to like the Demario Richard, Kalen Ballage, even though, we threw a lot of criticism at Cam Ballage for maybe not achieving his full potential? Or is it going to be something more along the lines of maybe like a Chip Trainum, who, in year 2 at Arizona State, his role diminished dramatically. A lot of folks pining for him to get action, but just wasn't quite there. So he's someone that can give you a very intriguing presence because he brings something different physically than a lot of the other backs, especially Skattebo. So there would be that complementary, type of situation there that could work out well. So yeah, very, very, this to me is kind of akin to like the tight end situation of years past, where like, all right, they're telling me that they're going to use the tight end. Doesn't happen. With the running back, it's like, we almost feel predisposed to thinking, no, there's just going to be one guy and he's going to carry the ball 1,000 times a game. Again, that's going back to a previous coaching staff, but it just seems like that's rooted in our DNA right now, that you're going to find that one guy, ride him till the brakes fall off. So, I doubt that will be the case. It will be very interesting to see a rotation. I mean, we haven't seen it for 5 years or so, since those Ballage, Demario Richard, even back to the, DJ Foster, Marion Grice type of days, where there were some good examples of that under Todd Graham for some successful teams. So to bring that element back, it's cool to see a guy run for 1,000, 1,200 yards, but it's also really cool to see a group that has depth and quality that doesn't drop off from 1 to 2 or even down to 3. And as you mentioned, some versatility with guys that can catch the ball too.
Yeah, the diverse skill sets really kind of intriguing there, because we talked about Skattebo being kind of that very violent Demario Richard type runner, similar profile to DeCarlos Brooks, a very physical runner coming on from Cal. Maybe he's kind of been lightly used throughout his career in the Pac-12. Maybe he has earned a jump up. But then you have guys like Javen Jacobs and the true freshman coming in from Texas, Kyson Brown, who Iguano feels is the fastest back in this group. Jacobs and Brown being kind of, on the speedier, more perhaps explosive side. Yeah, that kind of thunder and lightning potential. And so perhaps, it's not just maybe a 1 and 1A, and perhaps it's a 1, 2, 3, maybe even a 4 that's getting some sort of mix in there as well, because the Oregon rushing attacking, that's kind of, we go back to, what Dillingham was able to do last year as the OC for the Ducks. He had 2 backs with over 700 yards rushing, but also a big time running threat in Bo Nix, who put up none of the quarterbacks right now. I mean, outside of Jaden Rashada, who, as we talked about, not probably the guy who's going to be opening the season, barring perhaps some unexpected developments as the starter. So neither Pyne nor Bourget are necessarily the type of runners that a Bo Nix is. Not to say that they're not mobile, can make moves within the pocket themselves or extend plays, but the fact that might give some more rushing opportunities to one of these more talented backs, maybe a Javen Jacobs, who really kind of has impressed and continues to impress with his explosive playmaking ability. The ability, you can kind of a chess piece, you can put him at slot, you can put him out in the backfield, or Kyson Brown. George Hart's a guy who's very smart as well, has a good football IQ. He's a very talented back, and he's, I should say, changing numbers. So he's going from 39 to 21 as we're talking about him. But yeah, the number of backs in this room, in this opportunity, really makes it a very intriguing position. That and obviously not the level of the quarterback, but Skattebo is a guy that I tweeted during one of the spring scrimmages that this is a guy who's going to score 10 plus touchdowns. I actually talked to Jalen Conyers today. He was talking. I mentioned that stat. We were talking about Scat, and he said he agrees with that, but he's also said that he's going to get 10 and that Badger's getting 10. So it's like, there's a lot of touchdowns. And so we'll take it. That'd be an exciting team to cover.
Yeah. I know Hode Rubino fired up about Kyson Brown. I saw him either tweet something or post something in the huddle today about how he really passes the eye test, and that Brown's put on some very good weight over the from the end of his high school senior season. So yeah, you've got a lot of guys there. Obviously, a lot of new names or position changes. So it is a unique situation at the running back group, very different from what we've seen in the last several years. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So I'm, again, very eager to see how this pecking order shakes out. Seems like it's trending more toward, having, 3 guys with 400 plus yards, and then obviously the top end having in the 700-800 range than it is to have one guy with, 1,000 to 1,200, and then a big drop off there. Again, if you get the yardage, you get the touchdowns, you keep guys healthy, you keep the defenses guessing, that's a good thing. Different take to to the position group from what we've seen over the last handful of years. But, once again, to cap it off, Cam Skattebo, like I mentioned last time out, he's like that number one guy on my list of players that I'm really interested to see, that I think are very important, because if he can do his thing at this level like he did at Sacramento State, if let's just say in the scenario that he is the guy and earns it and does that, that's a really interesting complementary piece. I mean, obviously it's a force in itself, but also a hugely valuable complementary piece to the receivers and tight ends that we'll break down here in a moment.
Yeah, so let's jump into the wide receivers, and it's interesting. I feel like this is a situation where you have a couple of if you got to feel really good about a couple guys, and then be like cautiously optimistic about kind of the rest. Because right now you have Elijah Badger, kind of the returning star, the guy who is ascendant in the Pac-12, coming off a very productive season a year ago, kind of that breakout year. The chemistry with Trenton Bourguet was pretty evident. And Xavier Guillory, who you hear from here a little bit on later on in the show, absolutely just a explosive star throughout spring practice. And from practice one, he had a big touchdown catch, like it went 75 yards, did the Tyreek Hill peace sign as he outran the DB. You feel that those two guys are going to be some absolute stars on the outside. And then I think the real interesting thing is like what happens in the slot, because you return Geo Sanders, who another number change. You were now looking for the number 6 out of Geo Sanders. Jake Smith, the former Gatorade National High School Player of the Year. He was dinged up, unfortunately, in the spring. Came back near the end, and I've been hearing so many good things about what he's been looking like during summer workouts. Very explosive. Melquan Stovall in that slot mix as well. So I think right now you feel pretty good about having Guillory and Badger on the outside. You have some very intriguing options in terms of the slot, but also some other skill sets in the guys behind them. Whether it's a big body type like Troy O'Meary or Jordan Tyson, will be coming back from a knee injury, and his status for the start of fall camp is still TBD. But kind of a speedster there, kind of like the running back. You have a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different types, and in a position group that in this offense is going to get a lot of action.
I mean, if you can get the stars to align, maybe not perfectly, but a little bit, there can be some danger out of this group. I mean, I think it should be very solid no matter what. But Badger, like we've been talking about, he's that guy that the next step for him is to get to that 1,000-yard level, double-digit touchdown level, which is certainly within reach. I mean, if he wants to be that next guy, that next Brandon Ayuk, that next N'Keal Harry, as far as productivity is concerned, and those guys did some pretty good things as far as their draft stock is concerned, that's the step for him to take here. Guillory, that's one that is really, side by side with Cam Skattebo in terms of really, really excited, maybe still in that mix of cautious optimism because you want to see him on the field making that leap from the FCS level. But, speed kills, man, and what he has and his ability to get downfield. I mean, when you see it from guys like I was thinking like a Frank Darby, who was never really that number one receiver because he played with the first round picks, but he used that to his advantage. And if teams would ever sleep on him, I mean, he's going the distance, and that could be that kind of presence. And that was obviously a very exciting, very impactful player that was here a handful of years ago. If Guillory can be something like that, that'd be incredible. Sanders, he's kind of someone like that Trenton Bourguet type, to where it's like, just don't count him out. He's going to put in the work. There might be other guys that, you see these Elijah Badgers or these ones that have huge size, or you look back on these accolades that they had in high school or at other schools, doesn't really matter. Sanders came in last year and did what he did, and that's something that's setting him up on the doorstep of a special season as well. Some of the other names that you went through, Stovall, he's probably has as good, if not better, career numbers than anybody on the team because he's been around for a while, been productive at a few different schools. Jake Smith that's one of those wild cards, perhaps on the entire team.
Yeah.
For me, that if you were to ask me, like, who's like that wild card guy that he could break out, that a lot of things are possible, and if he does, it'd be an incredible thing for him. That would be wonderful, and obviously for the on-field productivity, it would be incredible for him to get a shot at redemption at the college level. It would be outstanding for this football program and for Kenny Dillingham and his staff to bring home that elite level guy from Scottsdale, like you mentioned, the national Gatorade Player of the Year when he was a senior, to bring him back to Tempe and put him in a position to be successful. I think that would hopefully, really provide additional dividends within the hometown community. Recruiting wise, the ripple effect would be something special. And I mean, there are a few other names that we haven't even listed, a couple of whom are, returning players to this lineup, the Andre Johnsons, the Coben Bourguets, and then you get a couple of freshmen coming in.
Yeah.
This is a group that has a lot of bodies, but not just warm bodies. Some talent, some intrigue, some question marks. You mentioned Jordan Tyson. I mean, he go no further than that game Colorado played against ASU. And I know that Trenton Bourguet and Jalen Conyers were the stars of that show, but Jordan Tyson torched ASU. When he's back from his injury, I don't know if there's a timetable expected for that. So, yeah, when you look at these skill position groups, that's a lot of work for these position coaches and for Kenny Dillingham, Bo Baldwin to really figure out that pecking order, but that's going to make it a dogfight in the best way possible here in fall camp.
Yeah, you mentioned the freshman. You got Corbin Hendricks, 6'3", big body type coming in, and then Caleb Black, on the smaller side, 5'9". But yeah, I feel really good about the Sun Devils' number 1 and number 2 options, and I think that whoever wins that slot battle is going to be a really good, productive player, because there's a lot of talent in that group fighting for that job, and whoever wins is probably going to have to put themselves in a great position and really perform pretty well. And now we even got to the tight ends, who we'll talk about in a second. So again, whoever wins that quarterback job, you're going to have some options at play there. You got likely 1,000-yard receiver type in Badger, maybe another 1,000-yard type in Guillory with his size, his downfield speed, was also his kind of catch and run ability as well. So a lot of good options here. We have one guy coming back that's it really is kind of striking that he didn't even get an honorable mention, Badger, in terms of the preseason. Well, I guess just kind of illustrates how just everybody is overlooking the Sun Devil roster and didn't really pay attention to what happened off season.
Yeah. There are talented wide receivers across the conference. So it wasn't a shock to me that it wasn't, first or second team preseason, but not to give him any kind of nod. Yeah. I would imagine that's a slight to him. It's a slight to ASU. It's a slight to Trenton Bourguet in the quarterback position. I mean, it's people from the outside looking in that are picking at things and thinking he's not going to do that great this year. I happen to believe to the contrary. So we'll see how it all shakes out when it's all said and done. Again, it's going to be tough for him to be in the top 3 or 4 statistically among wide receivers, but that's because you're going to have some guys that are just putting up monster numbers, I believe. But he should be right up there with the best of the best, and still, again, a monster season. 1,000 yards or so is not too terribly far off. If not that, just highly, highly productive. Certainly building on last year can be expected.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with Elijah Badger and asked him that question. Did that add a little chip to the shoulder? You can find that on the Speak of the Devils YouTube and Instagram. We'll call that maybe a social media exclusive. You won't find that on this episode. So go give us a follow on those platforms, subscribe. But yeah, obviously a lot of weapons here. So we'll see how the quarterback battle shakes out and how that chemistry with this talented group of receivers can flourish here and throughout the fall camp. Now, before we close out the offense, let's have another conversation, this time with running back Cam Skattebo.
Camp just a couple days away. What are some of the things that you've been working on, since the end of spring and through the summer?
The biggest thing is speed for me. I never had that long distance speed, so I've been kind of trying to work on that. And being able to break away from the defense has kind of been my biggest key and focus lately.
Have you seen any gains in that area working with Coach Joe and staff?
Yeah, definitely. Coach Joe's been doing a great job of keeping us conditioned and working on our long distance speed and quick twitch and everything. So he's been doing a good job of definitely improving me and everybody else.
When you go back to the spring, those 15 sessions, what are some of the gains that you saw yourself kind of make from that first practice through the end of the spring game?
Just being able to adjust to situations and different coaching through my college experience. Coaches here definitely coach different than what I've been used to, so just getting adjusted to everything and being able to focus on what they want me to do to make the team better and to win games.
What are some of the ways in which the coaches here are different than back at Sac State?
I mean, they want me to give it my all, which also the other coaches did too, but these guys don't let me take any slack, don't let me give any slack to the team or anything. They want me to go 110% the whole time, and if I can't do that, they don't want me on the field.
How comfortable are you feeling in the offense?
I love it. Very similar to what I've been running my whole college career, but Coach Bo and Coach Dillingham do a great job. Coach Aguano as well, teaching the offense to me and the other running backs. I feel super comfortable. I don't have any doubt in my mind that I'm going to go out there and be able to produce what they've taught me.
Your guy who's like kind of a lead back at Sac State, putting up a bunch of yards and heavy usage. I talked to Coach Guano the other day, and he was talking about how he'd like ideally to maybe get a rotation going, but it's also open to just kind of the flow of the game. And if one guy's clearly the lead guy to take and run. From your perspective, I mean, is there one way that you like? Is it like you like having the 20, 30 touch type of game, or do you feel like getting a consistent rotation keeps you fresher and more effective all game long?
I'm not really a selfish guy. If another guy's playing better than me, or I'm not playing so well, I'm in for whatever. I'm going to do what Coach tells me to do. If I get 6 carries a game, or 12 carries a game, or 30 carries a game, that's up to them. I'm going to give them what I got, and they're going to decide at the end of the day, they're going to decide what they want to do with me.
What are some things in fall camp that you want to get done to make sure that by August 31st that you're ready to go for the opener?
Definitely being able to play a full game. My goal has always been able to never come out of the game, and I don't like coming out of the game, but of course there's times where you need to come out of the game or tired or you're sore or something's wrong, but my goal is to try to stay available throughout the whole game and not have anything happen.
Quarterback competition is obviously going to be the kind of center stage during fall camp. What as one of the key playmakers on the offense, what's it like just having kind of like at least a mix of guys in there, at least for the first couple of weeks, and not having necessarily one guy that you can kind of coalesce around off the bat?
I think the biggest thing is seeing them all as leaders. No matter who's at the quarterback spot, I think the whole offense needs to know that whoever's at that position need to take control, and everybody needs to circle around whoever's in the game at that moment or at practice. If someone is the third string or the first string, it doesn't matter. You should still be behind that guy on what his decisions are being made. And just being able to be around whoever the starting guy is or whoever's out there.
So when you came out of spring practice, what did you feel like you really took away from that experience first time going through a spring practice at this Power 5 level?
I took a lot. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger everywhere. We don't have guys that are kind of the fish on the defense. Out here, everybody's good. So I've definitely taken away a lot with playing against the defensive guys, just knowing who's good and who's not, but everybody out here is good. So just constantly working on myself, making myself better is what I've been trying to work on.
Was there one skill that you saw from practice 1 to practice 15 that you really made quite the improvement?
My whole game improved, I believe. Coach Aguano does a great job of getting us all in the mix and making sure he works on every little thing that all of us have that we need to fix or adjust. So he does a good job, and I feel like my game in total is improved.
For people watching for the first time, they'll be surprised how quickly you adjusted to this level and maybe showing more quickness and speed than probably people saw on tape. But I got to think that you were not surprised by what you displayed in those spring practices.
Football's football. If you're an athlete, you're an athlete. I've always thought to myself, whatever level I play at, it's still football. Just produce how you can produce, and if it's good enough, then it's going to be good enough. If it's not, then you'll know. But I've always been able to think I can play at any level that I'm at. So I don't think it's a big deal of what level I'm at. It's just where I'm at is where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to play ball.
All right, great stuff from Scat there. Let's talk tight ends. Now, this is one of the position groups at ASU should feel pretty strong. Obviously, the guy at the top, Jalen Conyers, probable first couple day NFL draft pick. The question for me is, can he meet these expectations? Because not that doubting his skill, but Joe, the expectations around him are so high, and rightfully so. I mean, he did what he did at the back half of last year. He did a lot of great research in terms of just how that 6-game finish stacked up historically in the program. But then spring ball was ridiculous. He was catching, just making a ridiculous highlight reel catch, SportsCenter top 10 quality. It's even like almost every practice. Just really kind of taking those big steps forward. So the expectations for him are through the roof. Can he meet or perhaps even exceed those? The first, kind of answers and data points we're going to get are going to come in fall camp.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back, and I mean, I'm a huge Chris Coyle fan, but I don't think this level of expectation I can't think of it for a tight end since Zach Miller, which was almost 20 years ago when he started his career, of where like he's going to be the guy, and then he shows something, and then it's all right. This guy's the next big thing. Yeah, I mean those are expectations through the roof because it was such an intriguing small sample, less than half the season, but it was just unreal what he did last year, and I think those expectations, the root of those expectations is amplified by the fact that last year was such a forgettable season in so many ways that when there are those small glimmers of hope that you cherish them, you know what I mean? You take them into like hibernation for the cold off season and you nurture them so that they can grow because there was not an abundance of wonderful memories out of last season. But man, he showed what he can do. And it's that next level stuff. I mean, he's a big body guy, athletic. I mean, the way that he can move around people, the ability to, high point the ball and catch things in traffic. He basically gives you just about everything that you could ask for or want out of a tight end. As you mentioned, very high expectations, but there's no reason that he can't do it. You know what I mean? And he'll have the opportunities. He's a known commodity. He's featured as a team leader. He's basically in a position where he's being portrayed as the guy as he should be. So, but yes, you got to get out there when the lights go on, all the hype, all the expectations, all that goes out the window once things go live. So, maybe a product of what he does will be a result of who the quarterback ends up being. Like I said, especially if it's Trenton Bourguet, they formed a very quick, very effective bond last year. So you'd imagine that would carry over. Not to say that other quarterbacks wouldn't feature him early and often, but that's an established bond that's there. So, anything's possible, man. I mean, the school records, single season wise by tight ends, it's nothing really that crazy. I think that's
realistic.
50, 60 catch mark, something like that, 600-ish yards, something like that. I think Todd Heap had a better year than that. I'll have to dig up the record. The numbers don't have them right in front of me, but these aren't astronomical things to where you'd have to catch, 100 balls or go over 1,200 yards or something like that. So those are the conversations we're having with all reality. This is someone that really certainly should be catching a minimum of 50 passes this year.
Yeah, and that'll put him right in the Son of a Record books. I think it's 57-ish or something with Coyle. But yeah, this is a guy that should be in that mix for the all-conference tight end honors when all is said and done. Now, there's some really good tight ends in this conference, of course. Brant Keithy's coming back. Ben Jurasik at Stanford is also back as well. But I think Conyers is right there with him and perhaps has a chance, given this offense that likes to feature its tight ends. And, it's not just a one-man show in this position group. He's got a couple of guys that figure to make some big contributions. Messiah Swinson, flashed that, 6'7", 6'8" frame a season ago, had some good moments, but just really didn't have the consistency. I thought during spring practices, he took it a few steps forward and looked really good, kind of on a day in, day out basis. But one guy I'm really kind of curious to see is Bryce Pierre. Jason Mons told me that he is a Sunday guy. Now, Pierre coming over from the JUCO route is very talented, and he still has a year left. So while Conyers figures to be a guy that he might be heading into the NFL along with Messiah after this year, Pierre could lay the groundwork for kind of a contribution this year, but a big time 2024 season, because the staff really likes what they have in Bryce Pierre. I'm really kind of curious to see exactly how much they use him, if they go any kind of 12 personnel with him or even 13 with all three of the guys in there as well. It'd be very interesting to see just how much Bryce Pierre we get, because obviously you want Jalen to feature Jalen Conyers as much as humanly possible for good reason. Messiah Swinson has that frame in that size that you just can't simply replicate. But then Pierre is a guy with a great athleticism and a great skill set. How much can he coexist? And sometimes it's one of those things, like, not necessarily the guy is not getting reps because he's not good enough, but you just don't necessarily want to take reps away from other guys in that position group. It'll be an interesting balancing act, a good problem to have for Jason Mons, the tight ends coach.
Again, talking about the tight end group, do you feel like it's one of those fool me once, fool me twice? I'm not even going to try it, because then George W. Bush totally screwed up. I don't need to be doing that here on television and on the airwaves, but you know what I'm saying, where we've talked about this tight end group year after year after year. But the reality is again, if this group just meets its potential, I'm not saying does anything out of the ordinary, does anything crazy, they meet their potential. I have a really hard time trying to think of a season where ASU had this level of potential depth at tight end. I mean, just kicking the thoughts in my head again, going back to the Zach Miller days when it was Zach Miller, his brother Brent played at a high level too. You had my guy Lee Burgraff, who was a brawler in there, one of those kind of glorified offensive linemen, but I think he caught a touchdown against USC. Anyhow, there was some depth in those days. You go back to the Rose Bowl days, you have Steve Bush, Kendrick Bates, some others. But man, I mean, the things that we're talking about with these players, this is stuff that we just haven't seen around here in a very long time, especially when you're throwing Pierre into the mix. I mean, if it was just Conyers, hey, that's great. If it was just Conyers and Swinson, awesome, even better. Now you're talking about 3 guys that have the ability to excel at this level, have some pro intrigue. That is something special. And as you've mentioned, I mean, and it's no coincidence that Kenny Dillingham, from what he did at Oregon, especially, and elsewhere, a lot of success with the tight ends, not just necessarily focusing on one guy, but a few of them, getting them involved in the action. So we could be in for something very interesting this year at the tight end position. Once again, we seem like we're saying the same thing over again with all these skill position offensive groups, is that you've got some depth with intrigue and questions, and you can have multiple guys at these positions that could contribute. I mean, this offense could be really interesting to where, yeah, you've got those 2 superstars, the guy at receiver and the one at tight end, but you got a lot of others that can contribute. So it's going to be a lot of competition in fall camp, and that's an iron sharpens iron type situation. Yeah, not trying to get too far ahead of myself, but you have to be very intrigued at this point, because it needs to be put on the field, but intrigued by the potential of not only this tight end group, but the entire offense as far as the skill players are concerned.
Imagine you're an opposing defensive coordinator, and I mean, you got a game plan to shut down Elijah Badger, Xavier Guillory, Jalen Conyers. You got Skattebo coming out of the backfield. That's a lot of like sleepless nights. But if the offensive line isn't doing its job, then you can have all the weapons in the world, but your offense is not going anywhere. And so that's one area that we have gone to a couple of position groups where you feel pretty good about the position group, the depth that they have there, even though perhaps the production at this level might not be immense. Offensive line, though, I have some question marks, because there's a lot of new pieces here. We got some returning pieces that have some question marks of their own. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this group is able to kind of coalesce with so many new pieces, and knowing that so much is going to be riding on them because they have such a potent blend of playmakers. You start, just kind of the returning guys, kind of the one returning starter, at least based on the end of last year. Left tackle Isaiah Glass had some ups, had some downs, and is in kind of some growing pains as well. He looks a little bit bigger. He looks like he's added some good weight, some physical, some more strength to his game, but he's going to be walking down that blind side, and that's going to be a paramount of importance for this Sun Devil team, this offensive line, for Glass to kind of take that next step forward. Because I don't think if we see the Glass of 2022 and 2020 in 2023, that this offense is going to reach its full potential. Now, if he's able to continue his the kind of upward trajectory we've seen throughout his career, it's going to be great. And also, nipping at his heels, you got Bram Walden, one of the elite prospects coming out of the state of Arizona a couple of years ago, a 4-star guy, spent time at Oregon. He's back, was dinged up a little bit in spring, but he was in that mix at left tackle as well. Perhaps a guy that could be the left tackle of the future. And how much in the future, I don't know. That might be up to Isaiah and to how well he's able to play and how well he's able to hold him off in fall camp.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about last time out when we were counting down the important players. Isaiah Glass being at the top of a list is something that, even though it wasn't my immediate selection, I can certainly agree with that, because if the difference that one player can make, of if he is playing at a solid, maybe borderline all conference level, again, I'm not saying he's going to go first team all conference and collect all the national awards. I'm not saying we need to push the expectation out that way or make that be the requirement for it to be a satisfactory season. If he's just playing consistent football, minimizing mistakes, improving as he goes, as he has, because again, he was still a young player last year, that will be a huge deal. If he is playing at that level, if he improves to the point where he's in that realm, maybe thinking of it, because a guy that I would love for his career to emulate would be like a Evan Finkenberg. someone who similarly came in with a great frame and athleticism, room to grow, started at a very early point. Fingenberg, I believe, was like a all the time starter for his entire career here. But by the time it was all said and done with him, his last couple of years, he was a first team all conference caliber player, just improved year over year. If that's the kind of thing that we can see out of Josiah Glass and have that improvement, if he can take that step up from last year to this year, just kind of, again, incrementally, I think that'll put him and the line in a good position. But that needs to happen, because on the other hand, if things stagger, if things take a step back, if things are simply inconsistent, that will send that offense that has the potential to be powerful. It'll really handcuff that whole group.
Now moving to the kind of going left to right along this offensive line, ASU seemed to have their left guard for this season, and Ben Coleman, the very experienced Cal transfer, unfortunately suffered a leg injury during the offseason. He missed all of spring ball, and he's going to be missing some time well into the season based on the last update. So the team had to go find some other options elsewhere. Sione Finau came over from Purdue. He seems to have the inside track at the left guard spot. He's a guy that has seen some time for the Boilermakers, but was never kind of that full-time starter. So that's going to be one area of concern, because being able to dominate the interior of the offensive line is going to be pretty crucial. At center, Leif Fatanu, coming over from UNLV, is a guy that I have pretty good confidence. He was one of the better offensive linemen in the Mountain West over his career. Had a very good showing in spring. But I think if Glass is able to continue that upward trajectory, and Fatanu is able to continue to be good at center, but I just worry about that left guard spot, just because we don't know if Sione is able to kind of come in here. He's never been challenged in that way, but it is, of course, a great opportunity. Cade Brooks, coming over from Texas Tech, is another guy who has interior offensive line ability. Perhaps he could challenge and push for a start at the left guard spot as well. Perhaps worst case, he provides some quality depth.
Yeah, I mean, those two positions are open because of transfers, man. It would be nice to have kept Ladarius Henderson. Like you said, Leif Fatanu at center. I think that's something that might be within the realm of a minimum of a lateral move from Ben Scott. Maybe the potential for improvement, but yeah, that would be nice to have that one piece there, especially with Coleman being out. But as you mentioned, it's an opportunity for guys, so hopefully a change of scenery helps them to have a chip on their shoulder, have a new lease on things, have some motivation, knowing that starting position, perhaps for the entire year, but seemingly for the first at least 2/3 of the season, something like that, that's going to be there for the taking. And obviously, if you're in that role and playing consistent football, hard to take you out of the lineup if you're playing well. So again, opportunity is a thing that a lot of these athletes, that's the one thing that they want, one thing that they need, and that's there for those guys.
And the right guard, you figure a familiar face is going to be keeping that job that he held in spring. Joey Ramos, who, of course, the Valley product, played several years at Iowa State, came back last year, won the job along a starting job on the offensive line, and unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury, a broken ankle in the opener last year. He's back, looked good in spring. You feel good that he's finally, and talking to him recently, he's like happy that he's able to just finally lock down one spot, because he's a guy who has versatility and played some tackle, even some center, some guard as well. But now that he's locked in at that right guard spot, you feel pretty good there. And then at right tackle, Aaron Frost, who was a multi-time All Mountain West performer, unfortunately missed all of spring ball after coming over. He was around, but wasn't able to get out there. Kenny Dillingham says that Frost will be good to go for fall camp, so that'll be good, because he's an experienced bookend on the right side. So if those two pieces there on the right side can kind of play up to their potential, come back from injuries, because Frost is also a guy that has battled some pretty significant injury issues throughout his career. Those guys can stay healthy, you feel pretty good. You still have some questions in terms of like a lot of these, so many new pieces, and of course, with Frost out, this lineup left to right, the starting five didn't have a whole lot of time to get to gel. So you wonder how quickly that chemistry can develop.
Yeah, Frost, his name needs to be up there with some of the newcomers, at least, and especially on offense, along with Skattebo, as far as, man, if that guy can come in and make an impact from day one and be consistent. That's going to be a massive, massive difference maker. You just need to stay healthy. You need to play consistent football on the offensive line, not necessarily expecting this group to be bulldozing everybody, on every snap. It'd be a lot cooler if they did, but expectations at this point is, again, I'm not, I hate to sound like I'm setting a very low bar, but the first hurdle to clear is you got to make sure, obviously, number one, that you stay healthy. You got a consistent lineup out there. And then kind of number two beyond that is don't be a liability. Don't handcuff your offense. Don't make the quarterback be pressed into bad decisions or rushed decisions because you're unable to keep the defenses at bay. And Frost is going to go a long way with that, as is Ramos. Obviously, the entire group is going to be what determines that. But when you have veteran, accomplished players like an Aaron Frost, if he can remain healthy, that's going to be, I think, a very, very significant pickup for ASU.
It'll be interesting to see how this group is able to kind of coalesce and come together. And this is an offense that, on passing plays is you're really built on getting that ball out within 2.5 seconds. So it's not like they have to really hold the line and kind of the old 5-7 step drop back type of days in the old school manner of football. But they do have to play well. And it'd be a damn shame to have all these offensive weapons just not going anywhere. And some of the key reserves to keep an eye on in terms of depth or perhaps even challenging. We talked about Bram Walden at left tackle as well. Maxi Hanachor is the very intriguing prospect. Great, tremendous frame, but very, very raw. Just is relatively new to the game of football, but he's coming on the junior college ranks as well. Ben Bray has been around the program for a number of years. He provides some good interior offensive line depth. Emmett Boley was a kind of a spot part-time starter at right tackle, split some time with Isai Glass on the left side as well during last year. So it'd be interesting to see if he's able to kind of be that swing tackle a little bit, because he has that kind of statuesque, kind of like 6'7", 300 plus type of pound frame on him as well. But you just hope that this, with so many new pieces of this offensive line in the first couple of weeks of fall camp, as the quarterback competition probably is going on, is able to kind of come together, be cohesive, able to come to gel together and just kind of get going and kind of lead the way for this talented group of ASU playmakers.
Yeah, it's the offensive line. I think up through a variety of checkpoints across the preseason and into the season, it's going to be kind of a bated breath situation. First, you want them to look as good as possible. You have this feeling that you almost have to have perfect health, because you'd be concerned if you start losing players, as you did last year with Ramos and others and that sort of thing. Again, really just hoping that it can stay together as a cohesive unit. And once again, I hate to set the bar very low, but as long as they're not committing mistakes or being the catalyst toward, mistake type of issues, that to me will be a win. Then you build on that to try to create some strength, but you just don't want to hamstring the quarterback, hamstring the offense as a whole. And I'm not here trying to bash this group and say that that's a major concern, but this position group, objectively, if you're going to look at any on the entire roster, now there are a few groups that there are questions about. I think it's natural that just about everybody would say the offensive line is the position group with the most question marks, the biggest concern, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the ripple effect impact that its play has, for better or worse, on the entire offense and the team as a whole.
So we'll see exactly how this offensive line and all the various pieces is able to come together and kind of let things go and free up this group of ASU playmakers, very explosive Sun Devils out there. And let's talk to one right now, and wide receiver Xavier Guillory.
Fall camp's just a couple days away. Obviously you had a tremendous spring, but in kind of the months since the end of spring ball, what are some of the things that you've kind of focused on and worked on to get ready for fall camp?
Well, really just sharpen up, this is being a route technician, that mental side of the game, just polishing up my, top of routes, releases, all this little stuff that can separate you from, getting a catch or not. So, just all the little intricate details that my coach taught me over the spring ball, taking those things I'm not as strong at, and just working at them consistently, which I felt like I did a good job over the summer, and now just kind of ready to showcase that in the fall, and then come season time, just time to perform.
From the get-go in spring ball, it seemed like you were an explosive playmaker. I believe that the first team session or whatever, you had the long touchdown. You gave the Tyreek Hill kind of piece. Did you expect to have that level of success, making that jump up from the FCS level to Power 5, just kind of like really against this level of competition right off the bat?
Yeah, so I knew what I could do my whole career. Ever since I started, I picked up a football, man. I've been very talented at this game, so I never lost confidence in myself at any point during that transition. So I knew what I could do. I just needed to showcase it, and that's why I hit the portal. Just wanted to showcase my talents in a bigger stage, and have the opportunity to go against some other elite athletes. And I wasn't surprised. I was just like kind of relieved that I finally got that opportunity to showcase my talents on a big platform.
When you look back at the entirety of spring, from practice 1 through spring game, what were some of the things that you really kind of jumped out to you in terms of the things that you thought you did really well, and then also some perhaps areas that you identified to work on over this offseason to get ready for the season ahead?
So I was very consistent in terms of that's a big part of my game, that I try to just be just reliable, consistent every day, just making those tough catches, those third down catches, stretching the field, getting past the secondary. I feel like I did pretty well. And in terms of things I need to work on, definitely, it's working on tempo in my routes. I'm a fast receiver, so with a lot of fast receivers, they tend to speed up their routes and rush through the route. So what my coach is teaching me right now is just kind of like being a basketball player out there, because you don't see Steph Curry running full speed all the time with the ball. It's different tempos and going fast and slow. So I've been working on that all summer, which I feel like I have a good athletic intelligence to learn that, and I feel like I've improved by leaps and bounds on it. And now it's time to kind of just hammer those details on the tempo route running during fall camp, and then come season it's time to perform.
When you look at this Kenny Dillingham, Bo Baldwin offense, very high, fast-paced offense, it looks like. Quarterback's getting that ball out pretty quick, putting a lot of just kind of playing a point guard to get the ball to you playmakers out there in space. What kind of jumps out to you now that you've had several months of just kind of learning this offense, working and practicing in this offense, and what it means for the wide receiver position?
So this being in this offense as a wide receiver is like every receiver's dream, man. Like you're gonna play left side of the field, right side of the field, slot. It's a different a lot of varieties of positions that you can be able to play in this offense, and but it's also, you got to earn that trust to get on the field, just because how talented our receiver room is and how the standards that our coaches expect from us and stuff. So it's no pressure at all. You just gotta do the right things, study extra, stay, just take the time to perfect it. And so that being a receiver in this offense means a lot, and it's nothing I take lightly, and it's going to be a huge part of this offense's success. So we got to, as a top to bottom receiver group, we're going to have to, really excel every day and kind of just establish ourselves as the best group on the field at all times.
Going the FCS route, working your way up through the Power 5, how do you feel that's kind of, that journey has kind of shaped you, your approach, your outlook, and just how it's maybe perhaps prepared you for this opportunity on a big stage?
So my journey, I feel like, is going to be, it's going to help a lot of kids that maybe weren't the 4 or 5 stars out of high school that got a bunch of offers and all this stuff. So, but it's not over till it's over, man. Like, you always got time to, showcase yourself. And, I went the FCS route. Probably went to one of the worst teams in the FCS, but I had to take what I had. Just make it work, man. And just the Lord really just brought me through a lot. And, I went there for a reason. I learned a lot. I got humbled there. Had to work hard and get to where I'm at today. So that journey of being under-recruited out of high school, going to college, having to work my way up, and then now having my opportunity to kind of like showcase what I've known I could do my whole life is very satisfying to know that I finally at this stage to where I can continue to showcase my skill set on a big platform.
Of course, Charlie Regal, your coach a season ago, now he's here. I mean, back when I was playing ball in high school, he was the RDB's coach at Valley High School, so I've known him for quite some time. What stands out about Charlie and what he brings to a program?
Because I sometimes forget he's a coach, man, just how good of a dude he is off the field, man. He's such a good man. Like, he puts his family first. And then anytime he talks to me, it's never really about football. It's how you doing, and just me, him and I, our relationship is just it's really good, man. It's really healthy for me. Just having a coach like that cares for you more than just a football player. Because I'm not saying that as no cliche. Like, I've really been a player where I wasn't anybody to him. Like, I wasn't doing anything for him on the field. And he still showed a bunch of love to me, and so I know he's solid from if you're good or not good and stuff. So he's just a good dude overall.
Your new receivers coach, Rashad Samples, guy Kenny Dillingham is talking about. This is a guy who's on the fast track to a head coaching job. The recruiting prowess just seems to be, his career trajectory is just skyrocketing. What's it like being coached by him? What does he bring to you, and how have you seen him kind of help shape your game in your brief time as a Sun Devil so far?
Well, he's just motivated, man. Like, having a young coach like that who has dream aspirations of becoming a head coach. He believes in himself and he believes in his teachings, and we just had to kind of believe in him too. And just having a coach like that who's that inspired and that driven helps me every day to come into a film room or come into a practice where you might not feel as motivated, but you see your coach there kind of going through those hard times with you. So having a coach that cares that much about the game as much as you do, it means a lot and it inspires. It keeps you going, really, just to see basically your leader of the receiver groups kind of being that motivated all the time just gives you more energy to push through.
A year ago, Elijah Badger was one of the more productive receivers in the conference. He's back, looking ready to level up. You had a tremendous spring, looking like kind of the threat opposite him as well. What's that kind of rapport like? You're just having two kind of top tier receivers getting ready to go out and attack the pack.
Yeah, so I say the biggest thing with Badge and I is our chemistry on the field. Our games just kind of click, mesh well with each other, man. Just because he's the kind of more elusive, make people miss type receiver. I'm like the fast, stretch the field type receiver. So our games just mesh really well together. We got great on the field chemistry, and so we got big chips on our shoulder. And I don't know if you've seen, but Badge is still underappreciated in this conference, and I've been around. I know the receivers that they've been promoting all year about. They're saying that they're better than him and I, and we know what we can do. One thing about Badge, he's super confident, man. He's super confident in his abilities, and that's something that I really appreciate about him, how confident he is, and I'm confident in myself too. So when I get that opportunity to step on that field, and we're both trying to take everything, man. We're stepping on next, man. So me and Badge are gonna, we taking all we're not taking the disrespect lightly, and we're gonna go on that field and show everybody what we're about.
So you guys are locked in with those ones, but who the quarterback throwing you the ball is still in question. That quarterback battle's coming up in fall camp, going to be on center stage. What's it like, from a receiver's perspective, to kind of not know necessarily as of right now who's going to be that QB1 to kind of build with? A couple guys are going to be rotating in and fighting each and every day.
So yeah, that, like you said, man, it's gonna be a battle. That QB battle is just every day in practice. Who's gonna ball, man? At the end of the day, it's just there's no science to it. You just got to perform well. So I'm excited to see who it is. I'm comfortable with whoever it's gonna be because they all work hard. They're all really good dudes. They're all talented and stuff. So that's why it's been so hard to find a starting quarterback, just because they all really talented quarterbacks that could carry an offense, and so it's yet to be seen, but I'm excited to see who it's going to be.
What does success in 2023 look like for you?
You talking about individually or just for the team?
For both.
Okay.
Just, what when come December, when you look back on the season, what needs to happen, or what things would you like to see happen for you to consider the season a success?
Man, just a championship, man. Like, what's the point of playing this game if you ain't trying to go win that whole thing, man? Stuff. So we got the talent to do it, but we only know talent takes you so far. We gotta build that chemistry and just play well. So I want to see us take leaps and bounds from last season and catch everybody in the country by surprise about how talented we are.